Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Suede Sofa. So good to have you all here. Lara, so we have been, after our last podcast, we just had just a really good conversation. We're like, oh my goodness, we
were debriefing, weren't we? We were debriefing the podcast. And then our debrief, we were like, we need to talk about this next week. This is so good. And I think it's going to really connect with a lot of people.
Yeah. And the general gist behind that was that when we got off of that podcast, we're like, oh, that was so awkward. We've been talking, this is, I don't know what number of podcasts this is, maybe, I don't know, 8 to 10, something like that. And every single time we're like, oh my goodness, that was so awkward in the beginning. There's just, these, pauses and awkward moments. It'd be so easy to go, what in the world are we doing? Why are we doing this?
Right.
But yeah. So we'll put the tool sheet in the description, but basically this podcast is all about how we feel awkward and would prefer for things to be more convenient, but it's really about the principle behind it is really about redeeming the time, because all you've got is the present. All you've got is now. And you get to determine how you're going to use your time.
Exactly. And I feel like the best excuse for everyone is to always say that we're waiting for the perfect moment. We don't have things in order, or even the podcast, I was thinking I've moved around from numerous bedrooms or places in the house because I hate how the background looks. But then I'm like, that's just so silly. That shouldn't be the only reason that you don't do something, because then you feel like you got to remodel your house, and then you'll start looking at your videos and think, I need a new hairstyle. You'll think of a million things. So honestly, it's just an opportunity to give yourself excuse after excuse. But ultimately, you need to get past that and just take your step forward and do something, because you learn so much by just doing it.
Right. And now is the only time you have. So you get to determine, each of us gets to determine, what are we going to do with our time? Option number 1 is invest it. And option number 2 is squander it or make excuses why a better time, would be down the road. So, Lara, it was perfect, because when we were talking before this podcast, you were talking about something that you have been talking to me about doing for, you said 8 years. So why don't you kind of, tell our listeners about kind of what's been on your brain and what you're going to go ahead and just finally do?
Yeah. Inspired by this topic today, I'm going to step out and do this. So, like 8 years ago, I came up with a meal plan that streamlined our grocery shopping. So we really only have to do one big grocery shop every 5 weeks. And it's just taken a huge weight off my shoulders every week trying to meal plan and then run to the grocery store and all of that. But I have been talking about sharing my process for such a long time. And I've put it off. I've been scared. I wasn't sure how to do it. Then you start getting online and you find all these programs that you can pay for, for these course packages and things. And that was a roadblock, because I'm like, how am I going to come up with the money to do that, to share the course? And I finally was like, I just need to make this simple. And so this January, I signed up for a free course through Teachable, and I created the course. But Robyn, I've been sitting on this course since January, like, well, I don't know if it's ready, and maybe I need to redo all the videos that I've done in there. Like, I just keep coming up with so many reasons. Or like, what if people won't download it? What if people think it's too expensive? Or what if they undervalue it? It's ridiculous. And so I finally told myself, I am doing this before my 40th birthday.
That's great.
Which is next month. I'm just going to do it, because like what we were talking about before this podcast was, when something is sitting there and you come up with these excuses, you are limited to that. You
Yep.
will not learn anything else. Even if I fall flat on my face, I will learn something that,
Yes.
like, here, I've been sitting on this thing for 8 years and people didn't like it. Or I might do it and people are like intrigued, and it may be a slow, thing over like the course of several years, but at least it's moving in a direction and it's no longer this just, wander. So
Yeah. Yeah. That is so good. And Laura, one of the things we've talked about on this, in regards to this podcast is we're hoping to kind of model to people what it looks like to take the step out and fail in front of everyone. And when I say fail, I mean, it's like, you do what you can do, but there comes a point where and only where that point is, but there comes a point where when you're working on something, you are now getting into the paralysis analysis. And when you get to that point, you just got to pull the trigger and go. And when you fail, the failure is going to inform you about the next step, about how to tweak it, how to adjust it, how to, whether or not there's grace and peace for you to even be stepping out in the first place. But if you don't ever take the first step,
exactly.
Then you just get stuck.
Well, and honestly, when we were talking last week, I thought, why not just be really transparent in the process? That's what we're doing on this podcast. And I think it'll speak, I hope, to many people out there, because so many of us will not do stuff because we only see the picture perfect, package. The podcasts that have the great intros with the music and everything. And again, like, good videography and, good backgrounds, all of that stuff. It's like, you think, why would anyone ever be interested in what I have? But I also think that there's a craving now more than ever that people want to experience real life. They want to know what people are really feeling.
Right.
And, that might hopefully encourage us all to realize that even the ones that have it picture perfect inside, in some way, they're feeling insecure about things. And we can serve each other so much more if we maybe just share along, the process, share your failures, share what you're learning through the process, and encourage people to keep going. I mean, think of the great things that could come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Laura, when we started blogging, it was in 2011. So that was what, 12 years ago. And when we started, I mean, we started blogging because we wanted to help people, but we also were out there going, okay, look at what we're doing, and getting people to see, okay, look at what we're doing. And it's to the point where it's like, we've had a lot of growth and had a lot of transformation. And now we are sharing our stories of failure because we want to help you all. We want to champion you. We want to celebrate you. And there are people watching this video, and we're speaking to you. You're scared and you're thinking, I so want to do this. I know in my heart that I am called to step out. I don't know what it's going to look like. I might totally fail, but I just need somebody to encourage me, support me. I just need that little nudge. And that's what this is about. It's for us to encourage people, to champion people, to help people become the person that they were designed and called to be. And so we are pleading with those of you who are watching this, who are like, I so want to step out, but I'm just a little scared. And it's just like, okay, come on, little birdie, come to the edge and just fly, and we'll give you that little nudge. And what is it that's in your heart that you're like, I still want to do it, but I just need that little nudge? Well, you know what?
Yeah.
We encourage you, to support you and say, do it, do it, do it. We're cheering you on. We are cheering you on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if it scares you too much, just think of, and we've talked about this before, just think of the smallest step that you could take to do it. I know, like a year or so ago, I was thinking, like, I just want to work on my public speaking, or just being more comfortable with my words and things like that. And so I just told myself, just show up every day and do a story on Instagram, because like I only knew like a few people would be seeing it, but just telling myself, just start there and do that consistently over a year. And, it hasn't grown a whole lot, but I will say my confidence and just being comfortable in the process of like using the app, recording, hitting the record button. And that's what we're doing with the podcast. We kept, honestly, we talked about this for a couple of years and we kept coming up with all these reasons of why we should wait. And it's like, think of how much we're going to grow and feel comfortable just through the act of doing it consistently.
Yeah.
And so, don't feel like it has to be the whole kit and caboodle. Just, if you're at a time where you feel like you have kids that are interrupting too much, or you have a lot of roadblocks, I guarantee you can find at least one small thing that works towards this dream that you have.
Yeah.
And you can do it on a very small scale.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Lara, that's one of the things when you're talking, it just reminded me of in the podcast where I shared lessons from my mom when, after reflecting on her life after she passed away. One of the lessons was that the thing that you feel it like is your disqualifier is actually your qualifier. Use that, leverage that. So if you feel like I'm a mom and I'm going to be interrupted, use that like, hey, this is part of my life. And this is, if I'm going to do this, it's going to have to happen with an interruption from time to time, but I'm not going to let that stand in the way. And so that's, that is.
Well, you know what, you bring up a great point because, and I bet you are going to agree with this. There are so many things when our kids were younger that I wish I would have just done more with it, like, because now I'm like, I want to connect with moms that have little kids because we've been there and we remember what it was like, but you don't quite remember because you're not in it. So
Yeah.
I would say if you're feeling those disqualifiers, yes, definitely use them, because take it from us, we're out of it. And now it's kind of like, man, that was a missed opportunity. We could have really built up even more learning lessons by documenting them, just showing the raw moments, because right now, if we say like, okay, Robyn, what was our hardest thing, when our child was 5 months old? I mean, you kind of you forget.
Yeah.
And you could be adding value just right where you're at, exactly where God has you.
Yes. Yes. Use those. In fact, this is a good segue into, we've got on the tool sheet, and we will, include the link in the description. We will also include the link to Lara's course.
Oh, great.
Meal prep. We will include that as well. So for those of you who are like meal prep plan, I'm right there. We will include that. So check that out. But the first point, we've got a list of 6 or so, just little different tips on how you can use the principle of now is all you've got. How to use that principle to your advantage. The first point we've got is to use the resources you have. So your resource might be interrupting, moments where your kids are interrupting you. That is a resource. People who aren't in that phase of the life, they won't have that. And that can actually be an advantage. You think that's a disadvantage, but to other moms who are in that same boat, they're going to see that as so empowering. Like, wow, I can use the interruptions of my life, the disqualifiers of my life, and use those as a platform for people.
Well, think about, for example, if you're like going to start a real estate business or something, and you're really struggling, like doing that with young kids, use that as your social media content and say like, how to sell real estate or be interested in homes with kids in tow. That would give you a variety versus just, here's the next house. Like, use it, because you're going to connect with like, such a large, half of the people that you're selling to are probably moms, or women.
And you know what else that does, Lara? That helps you carve your micro niche to help you make you really specific, where people can come to you. Like if you're that mom, you've got something that, say, the 50-year-old man, he does not have that. He does not have that micro niche. So that reminds me, just recently I started following on, I don't know, Instagram or something. It is a mom. She seriously looks like she's a college student, but she's holding a brand new baby, and she's an estate attorney, planning attorney. And so she holds this baby, and she's doing like these little reels or shorts or whatever it is. And she's talking about 5 tips you need to, whatever, 5 tips for choosing your estate attorney or whatever. But she's holding her brand new baby. It's just like, oh my goodness, talk about you like using, like a lot of people might be like, well, I can't, I'm home with my baby, and I can't do anything in regards to work because this baby is like, I need to take care of my baby. And anyway, she's using that. So man, leverage your
Well, one
opportunity.
thing I did this year is I fold a lot of laundry, especially with our Airbnb. So I started doing my recordings as I do laundry, because you can just set your little phone up. And it's like, at first I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm trying to maximize my time. But, on the other side, people could be like, it's so nice to see someone else doing laundry. I spend half of my time doing laundry too. I mean, I don't know, just think outside the box, or don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Just be real.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, man, follow the peace principle. What gives you peace? And it's probably going to be you stepping outside the box and doing something so unique and so tailor made just for you and your situation. That's just how God is. He takes your unique situations and he wants to use you right where you're at. So that first point is use the resources that you have. Another point we said is live with no regrets. It's, Lara, one of the things that they say, there's been all this research that's done on people who at the end of their life, going to people at the end of their life and interviewing them on where are the regrets. And more often than not, the majority of people who have regrets, it's not over things that they did, it's things that they didn't do that they wished they had done. And so, man, step out. If it's in your heart, if there's any inkling in your heart and soul, like, I just want to step out and see, do it.
Yes.
Another point is to live courageous, and you've got to be courageous. Anything that is worth having is involved with risk. There's risk in it. And, being courageous, it's not easy, but it's just like, just take the steps, take that. Lara, have we talked? I don't remember. I feel like we've talked in our podcast about the 20-second hall of fear, or I don't know if that's what we called it, but it's just like, all it takes is a lot of times just 10 seconds just to take that first step. And once you take the first step, like if you think about it, if you're doing a performance, like let's say singing in front of people, or maybe it's doing a live video, all it takes is you hitting the go live and stepping through those first 10 seconds. And then once you get going, the rest, even though the video might be a 10-minute video, the 10 minutes isn't the hardest part. It's just those first 20 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever it takes to hit that and to say hi and to kind of fumble over your words or whatever. But then once you get going, you've got the hardest part.
Yes.
So push through the pain of those first 10 seconds of fear, of pain, and man, then you'll be off and running.
Well, and again, that will be a victory. I mean, if you just hit the record button and it lasts even just a few minutes and that's all you have one thing under your belt that you've done. And I guarantee if you did that every single day for even a month, 30 days later, you'll be like, I get through the first 5 seconds just fine. I've learned kind of how to, open up and things. And it's just, you have to put it out there in order to get better. So
and make a game of it. I mean, maybe you've got some friends who they're wanting to walk, step through their 10 seconds of pain every day. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you do it together and I don't know if that's creating a chain, like a texting chain where you've got your group of friends, or a private Facebook page where you're all getting on there, but whatever, like you find what works for you, but enlist your posse to help you, where they can encourage you and you can encourage them. Another point we've got on our tool sheet is to embrace failure and then leverage it. And you talked about that, Lara, with your meal plan. You said, even if I fail, I'm going to learn something from it.
Mhm. And I can free myself of, either just letting it go or being like, well, that didn't work. I'm going to try a different way. Maybe doing a course isn't the way, but at least I'll have direction. Right now, I can think of, a billion different scenarios that I will not know until I put it out there.
That is powerful. I mean, the fact that you can, just reiterating what you said, you're going to at least have direction. And a lot of times that's all we need. We're just kind of lost in this paralysis analysis, not knowing, should I do this? Is this going to work? A lot of times all you got to do is take a step and it's the way will appear, but you got to take that
Yes.
step.
Can I say something else?
Yeah.
I feel like this is really crucial and it kind of goes back into being courageous. But if you have something in your heart, in your soul that is speaking to you, it's super important that you listen to you. Because as soon as you talk to people about it, maybe your spouse or a friend, they may be like, are you sure? Because they may not want to do that. Let's say you've always wanted to do videos. You've always been drawn to broadcasting or something and you want to be in front of the camera. Well, you might tell your spouse, who absolutely hates being in front of a crowd. And because of that, they will push their emotion onto you. So it's
Right.
really important that you can listen to what they say, but you have to remember you're going to be the one doing the work, and you may love it. And so you're going to really have to not only be courageous, but be courageous in trusting that desire and that passion that you're feeling.
That is so good. And that leads us into our next point of a year from today. A year from today is going to happen, whether you take action or whether you don't. And how are you going to feel a year from today, 365 days away from today? How are you going to feel if you don't take action? And then how are you going to feel if you do take action? So sometimes just thinking about seeing yourself in, that person who you're going to be and who you can become if you'll just take action, sometimes that can help motivate us and inspire us to go ahead and take the action. And then the last point we have here on our tool sheet is to start today with your best plan. And there is a quote, I don't know, Lara, I think we actually have this in our Piece of Food book. The quote from General Patton that said something along the lines of, the best plan today is better than the perfect plan tomorrow. And it's just like, start today with what you've got. It's better than the most perfect plan that you can come up with in the future. So just start today with what's your best plan, then move forward, and then you can tweak, but you're never going to know. And just like you said earlier, you'll get direction on how to make your tweaks and how to adjust and what to eliminate and what to add.
Well, and how many times have we tried something and then we're like, that is not what I thought it was going to be. I did not like it.
Yep.
In my mind, I had it built up, but until I went through it, I'm like, I want to try something different. Well, that's huge, because you could be spending 10 years thinking about this thing that you actually don't really love.
Yep. That is so okay. That's so good. Yep. So for the action today is, first of all, you're going to ask yourself, where has fear or less than ideal circumstances been holding me back? And where do you know in your heart that you need to step out and take action? So you're going to answer that. And then once you know that, you are going to ask yourself, how can I use the low-hanging fruit principle to take my first small step and begin? And we've talked about that in a previous podcast about using the 4-step low-hanging fruit framework to help you find your low-hanging fruit. So it's going to be a step that's going to be so easy. It's not going to overwhelm your brain. It's going to be easy. It's going to be simple. It's going to be something that you can start doing immediately. And then as soon as you take that check, and I would say, make it your goal to check that box today, and maybe even like do a time task. Lara loves time task, and Lara got me on time task. They're awesome. basically set your timer. Like I'm going to, by the end of this, whatever, 30 minutes, I have to check this box. And when you gamify it, you add your brain loves games. And so add that element. So, there you go. So redeem the time. There are things that are in your heart and that you are called to do. Don't let fear hold you back anymore.
Nope. We believe in you. You can
We
do
do.
this. We're right there with you.
Yep. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you for our next podcast.
See you
Bye-bye.
next time.